Alex, for your like kind of like hair loss stack, like for example, you use 2.5 milligrams of dutasteride daily.
Yeah.
Do you have like did you notice any like side effects at first, or like what's your like side effect experience been like, if you mind me asking?
Oh, actually, my side effects experience is that when I started using Dutasteride at 1.0 milligrams, I actually switched cold turkey from Finasteride to Dutasteride. When I was
Uh,
using one, maybe lower, I had lower libido. What happened is
mm,
that I went in holiday and I couldn't get Dutasteride, so I started using Finasteride for around a month again,
mm,
and then I switched back to Dutasteride, and I had the craziest libido increase in my entire lifespan, bro. It was crazy. And in this server, the Kyle server, actually most of the people they report increased libido on Dutasteride, and I think
mm,
it makes sense. And yeah, just people didn't have the chance to report a higher libido in the clinical studies, so that makes
yeah.
sense. My experience is overall a higher libido, bro.
Ah.
100%.
Actually, I had this very similar experience. Like when I started to do SaaS, though I can't tell if it's just like an extreme confidence boost of like just all the mental stress of like hair loss is gone, where I just have that, big just, oh yes, finally I don't have to worry about hair anymore. So you
Mhm.
get that giant confidence boost, and then that's like libido based, or it was actually like, endocrine, based, or but I didn't get blood work, obviously. So it's just like, I don't know for sure what it was. It could be psychological. That's for me. I've definitely struggled with the like the psychological
Mhm.
aspect of it. So
I see, I
um,
see. Yeah, that makes
so
sense to have a libido increase given the data that we have on the testosterone raise
mhm,
for dutasteride use. And yeah, I've heard a lot of people reporting the same experience that we had. So I
mhm,
think it's fair to say that it can happen very often. And yeah, overall,
mhm,
that's my experience. Libido is
yeah,
higher than ever. Even on
mhm,
on finasteride, I noticed that. But on Dutasteride, it was very extreme, I have to say.
Yeah, just to jump
for
in real
sure.
quick, I would also agree with that too. Like I experienced that on finasteride and dutasteride, and and DHT is paracrine, right? So I would assume like with testosterone, it being, I guess your free testosterone would go up and it being more readily available. Yeah, like you have other reports of people who take like tren or other
Mm,
anabolic steroids. Not that we're promoting that here, but they also report like high, raises in their libido, right? So I think it's conceivable to
mhm,
see that if your testosterone goes up by some extent, you could
mm,
experience, a positive change in that libido. And Alessandro brought this up in my Discord server, I think about a week now. We've been talking about this back and forth.
Um,
But
mhm,
one thing that the researchers at Merck, I think just, and Alessandro brought this up, they just didn't do was that they, I don't think they asked if the people that were on finasteride, I don't think they just presented them with a neutral question of, how's your libido? Is it neutral, about the same, or is it higher or lower, right? It's always, do you have a low libido? Has it negatively impacted your libido? So we don't have any metrics from those studies in the opposite direction if it actually raised people's libidos, right? So
yeah,
yeah, maybe you can talk about that more, Alessandro and Braden.
yeah, it's from a psychological standpoint. If you just ask a closed question, you say, "Did your libido get lower?" Yeah, that's gonna influence people reports. If the question is an open question, like, "What happened to your libido?" That would have been better. And even they could have asked, did your libido increase? Did your libido get lower? Or did your libido stay the same? I think that would have been great. And Kyle, you brought this up. You said if they actually did that in the study, if they would have done it, probably a lot of the fear mongering wouldn't be there. Just
Oh yeah, most definitely.
yeah, that was a great observation because, like in the side effect, it could have been listed libido can increase, can stay the same, or can get lower, and that would have made sense. And for what I've seen anecdotally, but I've seen at this point more than 8 people said the same thing. Maybe the people that have a higher libido, a libido increase, could have been more than people who have a lower libido. I think that would be the case. I think that it will be more common to have a libido increase than a libido decrease. And I think that the libido decrease can depend on the estrogen levels because of aromatase and what happens when your test levels increase, right? So yeah, that's my stance on it.
I'd like to add something too, kind of to that. Have you guys ever had is your libido in general, is it pretty stabilized, or is there giant spikes of just drive? How stabilized is your guys' libido, have you noticed, on finasteride, dutasteride?
Actually, oh, Kyle, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been before Finn, I would never have a low libido, right? It just was kind of, just standard. But when I took Finn, there was a period of time where, things were going kind of crazy, to be honest. And then when I got to Dutasteride, it was a bit annoying at some points.
Damn.
But yeah. But gradually it kind of went back, I guess you can say, to a baseline. But there have been periods where it just, goes up crazy. So
yeah,
I don't know.
After you work out, I would get insane, just be when I'm working out or after, I would just have an insane spike of debilitating libido. But then an hour later, I just feel asexual almost. There would be these giant spikes. So obviously there might be something I'm very lean though as well, body fat percentage. I used to go really lean with cutting, and that could affect it as well. I remember when I used to be pretty into bodybuilding a lot, I'd try to get as lean as possible. And that's when I noticed the spikes the most. Whenever I'd work out, I'd be extreme, hyper, libido. But then after, it's just straight, just, just felt death, asexual, and that. So those were the biggest notices I had when I was when I started finasteride, dutasteride, and being extremely lean and working out. So that's my experience.
So your experience was mainly about short-term changes, but my experience before using 5-AR inhibitors was more changes that were month to month, not hour to hour, if that makes sense. So I remember before using finasteride, I remember that I had, in particular, 1 month in the summer when I had the lowest libido of my life, but I have a lot of health issues. So I don't know, maybe it was related to that. But after using 5-AR inhibitors, it was just more stable overall. And I like what Kyle said. It said the libido became kind of annoying, right? And that's exactly what happened with both finasteride, but especially dutasteride. With dutasteride, I had the craziest, highest libido in my entire lifespan, and I couldn't concentrate in the university. That is psychology, it's 90% women, so it was distracting. I have to be honest. But it was distracting. But yeah, even with finasteride, I was in a long-term relationship, and I had a high, very, very high libido. So I think that people need to realize that, when you use these things, you don't know if your libido is gonna get higher or lower. It's not just that it can get lower. People should know that. I like how Kyle said that things would have been differently even on the web, online, about those drugs, because a lot of fear mongering will be gone, wouldn't be there.
Yeah, I firmly believe that. It's mind over the matter kind of context here.